Imagine, you're in this world, right? And everybody's just talking all the time. But what if I told you that the most important stuff, the things that really matter, are actually said in silence? Today on Life Codes, we're going on a deep dive into the power of silence. Specifically, how the ancient philosophy of Stoicism can help us actually use silence to deal with all the crazy stuff that comes with living in today's world. We're going to be looking at a study that points out 9 different situations where choosing to be silent can totally change things.
You know what really gets me about Stoicism is that it doesn't just see silence as the lack of noise. It's about actively choosing silence to build up your inner strength and wisdom. It's a tool.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just shutting down, but actually choosing silence as a way to respond.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. So our first situation we're going to look at is how to deal with unfair criticism.
And this is where Stoicism really shines. It's all about focusing on what you can actually control. And most of the time, criticism hurts, not because of what's being said, but because of how we see it. Marcus Aurelius, he said it best. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength.
Right, so instead of getting all defensive, Stoicism is saying, hey, step back, look at the situation without all the drama.
Right.
Analyze it objectively.
There's another Stoic philosopher, Epictetus, who says, don't explain your philosophy, embody it.
Oh, I like that.
So when someone's criticizing you, it's let your work speak for itself.
Yeah. It reminds me of that example in the study about an employee getting slammed by their boss.
Yeah.
Instead of freaking out, the Stoic approach is to be okay, what's actually useful in this feedback and what's just noise and emotion?
Yeah, it's powerful, right? You're not letting the criticism define you, but using it to grow.
Okay, so unfair criticism, we've got some tools for that. But what about those people who are always bragging? How does Stoicism tell us to deal with that?
Well, Stoicism is all about action. Actions speak louder than words, right? So instead of getting sucked into some ego battle, just watch them. Let their actions show who they really are while you focus on doing meaningful things.
Ah, got it. So it's true worth isn't about how much you talk yourself up, but about what you actually do and the values you live by.
Exactly.
Makes sense. Okay, next challenge. Anger. Everyone feels it, but it can totally make us do things we regret.
Oh, for sure. And Stoicism has a lot to say about handling anger.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Epictetus said, keep quiet most of the time and speak only when you need to.
Okay.
And that's the core of the Stoic pause. When things get heated, take a breath. Analyze the situation before you react.
It's funny because Marcus Aurelius said something similar. How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?
He was so on point. The study gives an example of a coworker messing up and creating more work for you. The Stoic response isn't to explode, but to assess and figure out a solution.
Right. Calmly.
Calmly.
So it's about choosing a smarter response instead of letting anger run the show.
Absolutely.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about those times when rumors are flying around and they're not true? It's so tempting to jump in and defend yourself.
But Stoicism reminds us, control your reactions, not external events. Because honestly, you can't control what people say about you, but you can control how you react.
Yeah, that's true. In the study, there's this really interesting story about a teacher who got falsely accused of something. Instead of fanning the flames by trying to fight back, she chose to stay silent and let the truth come out on its own. It makes me think of Marcus Aurelius again, controlling your mind and all that.
It's a powerful example, right? Because ultimately, her integrity and patience spoke volumes, way louder than any defense she could have given.
It's sometimes not saying anything is the most powerful statement you can make.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's the best way to let your true character shine through.
Okay, so we've talked about criticism, bragging, anger, and rumors. Now let's talk about something that everyone experiences. Loss.
Loss is tough. It's painful. But Stoicism offers this perspective that helps us see it as a natural part of life.
Right. The study brings up C.S. Lewis and how he dealt with grief after losing his wife. And he actually connected his experience to that Stoic idea of loss being a part of life's natural flow.
And Seneca, another Stoic, put it beautifully. The day which we fear as our last is but the birthday of eternity.
Wow. So it's not an ending, it's a transition.
Exactly. And that shift in thinking, it can really help with healing. Lewis, he chose to reflect instead of distracting himself, and he found that the silence of grief actually helped him grow.
So it's about letting yourself feel all the feels, processing them, and finding meaning and growth in the process.
Exactly. Healing takes time, and sometimes silence can be your biggest source of strength during that time. And, Stoicism acknowledges that dealing with ignorance can be tough, right? You meet people who just see things differently or they don't get it at all.
It makes me think about Galileo. He came up with all this scientific stuff, and people just flat out rejected it.
And he faced so much pushback, but he chose silence instead of getting into pointless arguments.
Really?
Yeah, he was all about focusing on what he could control.
Right, that Stoic principle.
He couldn't change people's minds, but he could control his own actions and how committed he was to the truth.
So it wasn't giving up, it was more like picking your battle.
Exactly. Focus on what mattered.
That makes sense. So another thing we deal with all the time these days, especially online, is rumors and just wrong information. It's everywhere.
Oh, yeah. And Stoicism tells us to be super careful about what we believe. Don't just accept everything you hear. The study mentions this environmental leader who kept getting hit with rumors about her motives. But she just kept working. Let her actions speak for themselves instead of trying to shut down every little whisper.
It's like Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury.
Right. Rise above it. Focus on what you're doing, not on fighting words with more words.
So sometimes the best response is to just keep going, doing your thing, living by your values.
Exactly. Now let's talk about something that can be really hard. Dealing with injustice.
Ugh, yeah. That's a tough one.
The study talks about Nelson Mandela being imprisoned for decades and how he still managed to stay strong and choose forgiveness over bitterness. It's incredible.
He really is.
His story embodies the Stoic idea of
Bear and forbear.
he knew that true strength comes from choosing to heal and unify, not from getting revenge.
And all that time he was in prison, his silence wasn't about giving in. It was like he was setting the stage for something bigger, actually dismantling apartheid in South Africa.
Exactly. Silence, combined with the right action, can change the world.
Powerful stuff. Okay, last one, and this one's relatable. How to handle insults. It's so easy to get pulled into negativity, especially these days.
Oh, tell me about it. But Stoicism has a powerful way of dealing with this. Epictetus said, if anyone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation.
Whoa, hold on. Break that down for me.
It means we can choose whether an insult actually gets to us. We have that power.
So even when someone's trying to push your buttons, we don't have to react.
Exactly. Think about Gandhi, all the insults and opposition he faced, and he just kept going with his peaceful resistance.
Right, it totally disarmed his opponents.
And it won him so much support. It shows how silence can actually create positive change.
Wow. So we've talked about a lot of situations, and I'm seeing how Stoicism can really help. But are there specific things people can do to actually use Stoic silence in their everyday life?
Absolutely. One of the easiest and most powerful things is the Stoic pause.
Okay, the Stoic pause, what's that?
Before you react to anything, especially stuff that gets you emotional, just pause. Take a breath.
Hit that internal pause button.
Yeah. It gives you space to see your thoughts and feelings without judging them, and then you can choose a better response.
So instead of just reacting, you're being more deliberate.
Exactly. Another one is mindful listening.
Oh, okay.
When you're talking to someone, really listen, don't interrupt, and don't just plan what you're going to say next.
That control thing again, right? We can't control what they say, but we can control how we listen.
You got it. And when you listen mindfully, you can actually absorb what they're saying without judgment. That can really de-escalate things and help everyone understand each other better.
So you're present in the conversation, giving space for their perspective.
And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in that space is just be silent. It can show empathy, understanding, even disagreement. Way better than words sometimes.
It's counterintuitive, but it makes sense. A well-timed silence can be more impactful than a rushed response.
For sure. And then there's self-reflection. Super important in Stoicism. Take time regularly to think about what you're thinking, what you're doing, how you're reacting to things.
It's like a check-in to see if you're living up to those Stoic principles.
Exactly. Journaling can be really helpful for this. Write down your experiences, the tough stuff, how you dealt with it. Ask yourself, did I act according to my values? Could I have handled it differently?
So you're becoming more aware of your patterns, the things you need to work on.
Right. And it's important to remember that Stoicism is about self-control and resilience, but we're all human. We're going to have tough emotions.
It's not about pretending you don't feel anything, right? It's about handling those feelings in a better way.
Yes. One technique is reframing negative thoughts. Instead of getting stuck in the negativity, Try to find a more helpful way to look at it.
So even when things are tough, there's always a chance to learn and grow.
Absolutely. Like if you've got a crazy workload, remind yourself of your skills and how this challenge can help you get even better. And another thing that can help is connecting with nature.
The Stoics were into nature.
Big time. They believe it could really restore your inner peace and help you see things more clearly.
Makes sense. Just getting out in nature, whether it's a walk or gardening or whatever, can be super calming.
And Stoicism talks about living in accordance with nature too.
What does that even mean, practically speaking?
It means recognizing that we're all part of this bigger web of life. Everything happens for a reason, even if we don't get it right away.
So like going with the flow, accepting the good and the bad without fighting it.
Exactly. When we resist what's happening naturally, we just cause ourselves more suffering. Accepting that challenges are going to happen actually helps us be more resilient when they do.
It's like that Stoic perspective on death, right? They didn't fear it. They saw it as a natural transition.
Yeah, like going back to where you came from.
Yeah.
And that can be incredibly freeing. When you stop fearing death, you can actually embrace life and live each moment to the fullest.
These are some really cool techniques. It sounds like Stoicism is like a whole framework for living life in a more mindful and peaceful way.
It is. And it's a lifelong practice. It takes time to build these habits and make them a part of your life, but it's so worth it.
It's not about being perfect overnight, but about constantly growing and getting better at mastering yourself.
Exactly. Be patient, celebrate your progress, and keep learning and growing. Now, before we wrap up, I want to talk about social media and like the constant flood of information and opinions we're bombarded with all the time.
Yeah, that's a big one. It can be so overwhelming.
Stoicism encourages us to be really picky about what we let into our minds. Don't get sucked into the drama of the news and social media.
So being aware of what we're consuming and how it affects us.
Yes. Limit your exposure to negativity. Unfollow accounts that stress you out. You have control over what you let into your mind.
That's a good reminder. We have more control than we think.
Remember, Stoicism is about living with virtue, wisdom, and inner peace. It's about responding to the world with reason, compassion, and strength, even when things get tough.
So we're back, and we've been talking about how Stoic Silence can really help us deal with all kinds of stuff. Now, in this last part, let's get into some specific techniques for actually using it to find that inner peace and strength.
Okay, great. One technique that's super helpful is mindful breathing. Like when you feel yourself getting overwhelmed, just take a few moments to focus on your breath. Breathe in deep, hold it, and then exhale slowly.
You're using your breath to like bring yourself back to the present moment.
Exactly. It calms your nerves, reduces stress, and helps you think more clearly. And the best part is you can do it anytime, anywhere.
Right. It's always there for you. It's like a reminder that no matter what's happening around you, you can always choose how you respond inside.
Absolutely. Now, this next technique might sound a little weird, but it's called negative visualization.
Negative visualization. What's that?
It basically means thinking about things that could go wrong.
Wait, so you're saying we should intentionally think about bad stuff?
It's not about dwelling on the negative, it's more like mentally preparing yourself for challenges.
Oh, I see. So if you've already thought about what could go wrong, you won't be as thrown off if it actually happens.
Right, it's like building up your resilience. You're mentally rehearsing for tough situations so you can stay calm and handle them better.
That's pretty cool. So it's like Stoicism is all about taking control of your mind, right? Choosing how you see the world and how you react to it.
Exactly. And another really important practice is gratitude. Take some time each day to think about all the things you're grateful for, even the small things.
So you're shifting your focus to the positive stuff in your life.
Yep. And it's so powerful. Gratitude makes you happier, helps you appreciate what you have, and makes you feel more content.
It's like that whole Stoic thing about focusing on what you can control. You might not be able to control everything that happens to you, but you can control your attitude and choose to be grateful.
Exactly. When you're focused on the good stuff, negativity and overwhelm just don't have as much power over you.
These techniques are amazing. I'm feeling inspired to try them out.
I'm glad to hear that. And just remember, Stoicism isn't about being emotionless or passive. It's about learning to manage your emotions, responding to challenges with reason and resilience, and living a life that's true to your values.
It's about finding that strength inside yourself to deal with whatever life throws at you, and doing it with grace and purpose.
Yes, exactly. And Stoic Silence can be such a valuable tool in that process. It gives you the space to reflect, to choose your words and actions carefully, and to respond with calmness and clarity.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all these insights on Stoic Silence. I think our listeners are walking away with some seriously powerful tools for finding more peace and resilience in their lives.
It was my pleasure. And remember, everyone, this journey of self-mastery is a marathon, not a sprint. Be patient with yourselves, enjoy the process, and never stop learning and growing.
And to all our amazing listeners out there, we encourage you to try out these techniques, see what works for you, and unlock the incredible power of Stoic Silence in your own life. If you found this deep dive into Stoicism helpful, make sure to subscribe to Life Codes for more insights and guidance on your journey of self-discovery. We'll be back soon with more explorations into the codes of life. Until then, live with intention, choose silence wisely, and embrace the power within you.